Hey, it's Garrett with Around Town Dumpster Rental and Junk Removal. Today I'm going to show you how we change out our tarp on this dumpster trailer. It's the third or fourth time we've had to do it this year. We've been using these really lousy tarps that came from the trailer manufacturer. It's a buyer's tarp system and they just don't hold up. They're terrible material. We were buying this same replacement part from our local distributor because it was convenient. Took us a while to find a good quality replacement tarp. We finally got one. It's from US Tarps, and we're going to put that on today and test that one out. So here we go. So the tools that we have found helpful to do a job like this, there's a couple parts, right? So we're going to undo bolts along this tarp gantry where the tarp actually gets bolted onto this roll. And then at the end of the tarp arms, there's some sockets we'll use to take it apart. So simple things, a crescent wrench, a little impact. I think it's a 13 millimeter. You'll use these for taking apart the bolts on the actual tarp arm that comes down. And then for the bolts that go into the roll, it's just an Allen, and we throw that into a bit so it's a little faster. A hammer just for taking apart. Sometimes the tarp arms get stuck, and so just pound them apart. Some clamps can be really helpful for when you're putting the new tarp in place, just so you don't have to hold the tarp there with one hand while trying to impact the other. It can be handy to have some clamps. Obviously, you're going to need a new tarp. Like I said, we went with a tarp from US Tarps. It seems like a higher quality product. And then down here on the other end of the trailer, let me show you what we're doing. This may look a little homemade, and that's because it is, but we just take a couple clamps here, clamp two 2x4s together, so they're about 8 or 10 feet long combined, and then we use that as a stand, so when we lower the tarp system, it rests on this board so we can take it apart without the tension of the springs pushing on it. It'll make more sense once we show you. See the whole view here. So we're going to lower the tarp so we can show you why it is that we're replacing it. Should be pretty obvious. It's getting torn off of the system here. I want to unroll it all the way to where the arms rest on that board. So that should be all the way opened up. Yeah, it looks like it is just perfect. So the tension is off of the tarp for the most part. I'll undo it the rest of the way, but that'll allow us to work on these bolts as well as on the 4 or 5 bolts that hold it together. This is where the tarp failed. This fabric is just really awful, and literally this tarp should be wrapped around this, and it's just not strong enough for the use. Not sure why we have bird feathers in our tarp. That's a mystery, but we're gonna get to work. So it may look a little sketchy standing up here. That's just because it is. But there's 5 bolts across the top of this roll that I need to take out using the impact with these Allen heads. These things thread into this reel. So these bolts I try to keep in good shape. You're not trying to reef on these. You just need to loosen them up and get the tarp off of this. Lord willing, I won't drop a bunch of them and lose the parts. If there was a safer way to do this from the ground, I would. I don't think OSHA's watching today. And hopefully you get a good enough quality tarp where you don't have to do this very often. For me, I've had to do it more often than what I like. It is what it is. I think this one's gonna drop. Oh, come on. I got quoted from a trailer mechanic like $500 to have my tarp changed out. And I said, you gotta be kidding me. I can do that myself. And he was quoting like 2 guys for a couple hours of labor. And I said, no, I'm not gonna do that. So we've just had to deal with it ourselves. So there you go. The tarp's off on this end. Now I'll hop on to the other end and show you how that comes apart. So here on this end, this is where we need our crescent and our 13 millimeter. We're going to take apart 1 bolt on each side, and then pound it apart so this we can pull the tarp off. Then we'll put the new one on. There's one. Woo! Hold on to your crescent wrenches or they go flying on the parking lot. All right, simple enough, huh? So the idea here is that these tarps are resting on the 2x4s, so I should be able to pull this apart and this tarp arm not move a lot. There's one, and the other side came right out. There we go. Time to install the new tarp in reverse order. So we got this tarp from a company in South Phoenix, their distributor, and it's made by US Tarp. This is their 9618 mm combo. So it's essentially what that means is 8 feet by 18 feet monster mesh. So that's the type of tarp that we're going to test out and see how it performs. On our other trailer, that's a dump trailer, we just recently installed a tarp from US Tarp that's made out of armor mesh. So this will be a good comparison between monster mesh and armor mesh, and we'll see which one works better. So on this end, you have these, they're called grommets. That's what our bolt's going to go through to attach it to the roll. There should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. So same as the other. And when we install it, it's pretty important to get it centered on that roll. Let me show the other end. So a huge difference I noticed initially looking at this tarp is this sleeve right here. It's lined with a rubber tube, like a rubberized hose material. So this should not tear when all that tension's on the bar, pulling that tarp down. That's where the failure point was on the last tarp. The next step, once you have the tarp unfolded, I like to lay it out across the trailer and make sure I have the right orientation, facing up versus down. The tags and seams and stuff face down. And next, I go up on top of the gantry up there and I clip the tarp onto that roller so I don't actually have to hold it while I'm doing the bolts. So the next step is to get the tarp put up onto this roll. And I like to use some of these little clips to hold the tarp up here while I'm getting it positioned correctly. And then I move into actually bolting in the tarp using these grommets one at a time, just kind of making sure it's centered on the system. So this can be a little bit of trial and error, just getting your tarp centered. Usually if you put the bolt back where it came from, you're in a good spot. And again, I don't reef on these things. I just get it started. So essentially it holds the tarp in place and then I can move on to the others. So again, I start with the middle one, kind of work my way out. I may have to end up adjusting these another time or two, but it helps to kind of hold it in place while I'm sorting out where exactly I want it on the system. And it's just one bolt at a time. Try your best not to fall off your trailer. It's a good move for longevity purposes. Be nice to be able to do this from a ladder, I suppose, but this is just the best way I found to do it. All right, there's 3 out of the 5. See if I got it the first time around. This is not sketchy at all. All right, one more. Then we'll move on to the end. All right, the next step is to feed this bar through the sleeve, line it up with the arms, and then just get a bolt drop through it so it'll hold it in place. And hopefully you ordered a tarp long enough so it fits. I can already tell this fabric's a lot better than the other one. Nothing against buyers as a company, it's just the tarp that they sent us is junk. Don't know why they would include that as a product on this trailer. Not impressed at all. Yeah, it looks like it'll fit. Sometimes it helps to have a buddy just lining these up. It is a bar that weighs 20 pounds or something, so it's nice to maybe have a helper for a few of these steps. So the next step is just to get the holes of your bar lined up with this bracket, drop your bolts back through it, tighten it up, and then test it out a few times. So we'll show you how it rolls once we get it put back together. So again, we're back putting these together. So 13mm bolt, these little nuts here. I'm sure somebody watching will have a better way to do all this, but this is just what's worked for me. Nobody showed us how to do this. We just kind of figured out over time what we needed to do to get back to work. All right, it's tight. Now, some tarp systems have these rubber wheels that go on each end that keep the tarp exactly centered where it's supposed to be. My system didn't come with that. I'm sure better systems do, but this is what I got to work with. So let's run the tarp a few times and see how it goes. All right, time to run the tarp and see if we did a good job or not. So already I can tell this arm seems to be sagging a bit, and I'm wondering if we need to adjust the length of these arms. It's possible that one is slightly shorter than the other, so we can take a tape measure and get exactly dialed in, but these have set screws on them that we can actually adjust to be longer. See how it's looking on the reel up there. Looks pretty centered on that end. So once we get to almost all the way in, we'll see how centered it is. It looks fairly even all the way across. So it is coming in smooth. And then that's the tightest part where it's all the way cinched down. So we'll take a tape measure and see if one of these arms is a little longer than the other. But as far as the video is concerned, that's how we change out a tarp on our dumpster trailer. Thanks for watching.